Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd over there.
Nerdarch is dead. How are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm all wrecked now because it used to be mirrored, so you'd have to point in the opposite direction. It is no longer mirrored, and you just point in the right direction. It's messing me up.
Yeah,
I'm
I
ruined.
sometimes screw that up too. So it is what it is. Uh,
So we got
it's
shout
Monday.
outs
It's a
going
holiday.
on in the chat. Please shout out to Josh and Alex. We're on a night out in Edinburgh. Love you, nerds.
Nice.
What are you doing here then? I
Well,
agree. You
maybe
should always stop your night out to come hang out with us and talk about D&D and other TTRPGs.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they're on their phone. They just wanted to, quick chime in.
I guess maybe. But either way, shout out has been shouted out. And tonight we're
Mhm.
talking about maps and D&D for our ideas. And there's a lot of different directions we can go in this, and it got me thinking. It's not actually a map, but it's a VTT scene grinder where it's like everything is three dimensional, and like it
Mhm.
even takes like I believe they have like a 2D map editor over there that it then makes into three dimensional,
Right.
which is so the advancements in what you can do with mapping, you know, as just lay people has gone so far since like me being a kid with my graph paper and a pencil.
I mean, there's just so many great, programs and stuff that are out there. I mean, I've been playing around with some Dungeon Alchemy, getting ready for D&D in a castle that's coming up. In a handful of months for us. So it's kind of cool and scary.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah,
Like,
so Dungeon Alchemy is another awesome one where it's not only does it help make maps and create like three-dimensional maps,
mhm.
um, it has an AI that kind of populates the room. So you just kind of like draw them. For people that don't know, you just kind of draw the map, the shape that you want, the type of room it is, and basically the overall like dressing, whether it's a dungeon or castle or mausoleum or whatever, and it just populates stuff in there and has an aesthetic to it already. I was like, this is great. And then I realized the D&D game that I'm kind of running that I tend to use more maps for than most of them
Mhm.
is I decided to go in a totally different direction, where it's not really a fantasy world per se. I'm like, oh, Dungeon Alchemist is nearly useless for this.
I'm finding it fun and entertaining at the very least with my own campaign prep. So
Yeah. So are you going to like print out maps on cardstock or?
yeah, yeah. I don't know how in depth I'm gonna go. Like whether I just print them at home. I'll probably print one or two and see what that's like.
Yeah,
And if that doesn't work, then I'll just take it down to the local Staples printer and see how that comes out.
just print it on canvas like actual maps.
I'm not gonna go that direction with as much as I'm looking to do.
Yeah. We got Carlos in the chat
I
as well.
I did see that Mr. Volcanic Knight, who was over here on the channel this past Friday night for the untraditionally arcane game, has decided to come in and hang out with us in the chat this time.
Yeah. So I've go when it comes to maps, like I am all over the place, right? Like there for a time, especially for the game that I was running for, like I guess we're just calling it like our Saturday Night Philly game. I made maps for pretty much every session of that on Dungeon Fog, and then I would kind of throw them up on a screen. We use them like a almost like a VTT, just to give kind of some visual representation of what was going on. Um, which again, it's another program that's pretty easy to use. It does everything you kind of want it to do, and like I said, it even has some functionality as far as using it as a VTT, right? So, we've done that in the past. I definitely remember spending hours, with graph paper and a pencil, with graphite smudged all over my hands. afterwards. Um, but it's always been a huge part of the game.
I've never been the DM to draw maps. I didn't do well in the early days of D&D when it came to maps and that kind of stuff. I can definitely remember using like the Hero Quest boards or Dragon Quest, board game, things to use as like prior to gaming with you
Uh-huh.
as dungeon stuff. Uh, then eventually like we had some like the old dungeon tiles we floated around with for a little while, but never did the let's draw maps. And then it was never my thing.
So well, here's the best part, right? No one saw these maps but me, right? A lot of DMs would do that too, right? You're drawing the map of the dungeon where everything is, and it's not like you're drawing a map to lay on the table for people to be like, oh, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm here. Like this is like theater of the mind days, using mini and terrain in our games, and it was just so like me as a GM would kind of know where things were.
Mm.
And I've definitely, there's definitely a period where I got away from that, where like sometimes I'm just making shit up as we go, and I'm like drawing a little sketch to get a rough idea where things are, just in case people ask or want to go back.
So, do I don't know how crazy of a question this is. Do you still have any of those old drawing maps?
Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to look through my stuff and see what's over there.
I mean, because that's some of those things that, when I find things from way
Yeah.
when it's like, oh man, this is crazy. Even if it's not specifically D&D related, like I've done numerous, board game expansions for Hero Quest and Heroescape and, some other things where it's like, nah, I want to keep playing. What's there is just not enough. So running into some of that stuff is always a fun time. So, and that's outside of D&D. And I've definitely got some old D&D stuff. I mean, I was looking through some old boxes and I came across some more Ulfgania lore. And I said this a while ago, but like I've got the names of the moons, the names of the months, even the colors of the moons was on that chart as well. And it's like, oh wow, I can totally do the whole calendar properly. This is, kind of awesome. And I had been thinking about it, considering that, Jake from Mini Terrain Domain had dropped his own kind of Forgotten Realms calendar over on the DM's Guild. And that was a lot of fun to check that out. It made me want my own for our world.
Well, I know when we had fleshed out Ulfgania the first time, there was a big map of the world like that we had made.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the thing. Doug asked, "Do you guys draw maps as you through as a players?" So I know like our group really didn't do it too much. The group that would become like the Saturday night group, and then then Nerdarchy didn't really do that very much. I think we used to do it before that in like other groups that I played with. And I know it is pretty common practice to have someone that's a cartographer, the mapper in the group, that would make a map as the GM was explaining things, the DM was explaining things. I definitely in earlier editions, because like if like the dungeon master, especially back in AD&D in first edition, be like, oh, you're gonna leave now, which way are you going? And then like literally make you trace your steps, and remember how you went. So like it was vital that someone would map, because if
Right.
not, you could get lost in the dungeon, find parts of the dungeon you had gone through, or just keep wandering around in circles.
Well, I mean
DMs
that's
were kind of
why
vindictive like that back then.
that's why like chalk was necessary of like you having to do the okay we went this way and we went that way, and you had to mark where things were in some way shape or form, which is why like even in the movie Labyrinth you've got the little creatures underneath that are either flipping over the stones or turning their direction just to mess with Jennifer Connelly's character. And like I know GMs were pulling that kind of crap on players just for fun.
Well, the DMG, right? I think it was the first edition DMG under the trick section. it had one of my favorite images is the troll, which it doesn't seem like a thing that a troll would do anyway. But it's the troll following the adventure party, respooling their string that they're letting out behind them.
I do remember that picture. I thought you were going in another direction. I'm like, I don't remember where this is going. And then you get to that, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind
Yeah,
of hilarious. Because if you don't want to do chalk, why not leave a trail of string that lets the monsters behind you know exactly where you are?
yeah. Doug says it's not vindictive. LO. It's fun to explore the unknown. Not the way these DMs did it. It was more of a gotcha moment. Like, oh, you didn't draw a map and you don't know how to get out of here. You're gonna be stuck here forever, ever, ever.
All right, so Volcanic Knight has a question of how do you get inspiration for building maps? What is your thought patterns, for that kind of stuff, Dave?
I definitely had a period of time where even like when we started the Court of Worms games, right? Like
Mhm.
Google, like I need a Druid's Grove. I could like draw a map of Druid's Grove myself, or Google, a Druid's Grove, and and I found one that was perfect. And from there, I did actually like do some maps, but I was like, you know what? This is our home game. It's not like it's going on a product. We're not even streaming it. You know, I say scouring the internet for maps. If you're not particularly into drawing maps, but you want to use maps from the even just from the DM side of things, whatever scene you're looking for, maybe like haunted house, D&D map, someone's probably drawn it. Unless you happen to be a good illustrator or cartographer, they've probably even done a better job of it. I love adventures, pre-written adventures for this reason. They're a great resource for maps. Like even if you're not, you end up not running the adventure or whatever, you might be able to just pick through them and be like, oh, these maps are great to use, and it just saves you a lot of time and energy. Because like I said, you could probably just do it, but it probably won't be as good, and it's going to take more time and energy. So like to me, like that's like a go-to and inspiration.
And there's if you're not interested in drawing and you're not interested in scouring through, if you're just looking for I want a dungeon map, like there's literally
Uh,
and websites out there that you can just hit a button. I don't remember the name of the website off the top of my head, but as I describe it, I'm certain Dave does.
Donjon, because
So
it has everything.
I, I was gonna say that, but I wasn't certain.
Yeah, that's my solution, because as many of you know, like we tend to do a lot of GMing on the fly, and I will say the worst part about GMing on the fly is loot. Right? Is coming up with cool, interesting loot to give people that you did not plan ahead of time. So sometimes I'll just go to Donjon and just like randomly generate loot drops and be like, oh, this will work. I'll use this. And usually there's cool things in there, like an emerald wrapped in leather or something, like just something or maybe it's something that's not even that valuable, but it just looks cool, and the players are like, oh, what's this?
And I use that one on occasion myself because it's like, oh, how many rooms do you want? How sparsely populated or not do you want it? So like you can use as much or as little as on the websites. I'm a big fan of going there because I'm not going to take the time to draw out the maps for most of the stuff that I'm working on because I don't do long multi-session dungeons and that kind of stuff. Now on the flip side, my D&D in a castle game, it's going to be very heavy on the maps, and there are specific rooms that I want that I'm like, all right, I definitely want to have this tailor made for what I'm looking on it. So boom, I'm gonna go in that direction. So
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, because really, like when you're talking about a, there's a huge difference when you're talking about running a game for a convention or a one shot or an event, as opposed to like your campaign, your home game, right? Like
yeah.
when you have definitive amounts of time that you're working with, even though like D&D Castle is a lot of time, it's still a definitive amount. You're going to meet for X amount of sessions, X amount of time per session. So you're going to want to streamline it and have things that are kind of linear, or at least things that you places you can have them go, even if it's kind of sandboxy. Like you want to have those areas fleshed out so that if they go to any of them, you're kind of prepared.
So I just think that that's a great direction to go in. Now there's questions you guys can keep throwing up in the chat, so we'll keep answering. Comrade, I'm certain you already have this information. Why do you keep asking? But Comrade 2261 says, do you prefer using maps, battle maps, or theater of the mind? So take it away, Dave.
All right, I will generally default to theater of the mind. Ted likes to do terrain, so he's doing some version of terrain. But I found, running for our group, especially the group that, like, me and Ted switched DMing. So, like, we switched groups, and now I'm the DM of the group that Hugh usually does. So as soon as I even, like, roll initiative, anything like that, they start building a battle map on their own if I don't. So, like, they steal my DM agency every time when it comes to this, and I've given up and thrown it into town. I'm just like, Ted, do you have these minis? Do you have this piece? Because if I don't, they're gonna just do it anyway.
So I do try to, like, to me, it's not that big a deal if Dave's like, oh, in advance, oh, could you pull out this or could you pull out that? I do try to keep, the majority of my stuff sorted in a way to be able to find things. And that allows for, the ease of when it comes to that kind of stuff to put it out there. Now, I enjoy making terrain. I enjoy having, that kind of aspect, because to me, I like the tactical aspect of what D&D is and does. But I'm completely okay if Dave is like, nah, we're just going to go theater of the mind. And a lot of times when we play, we do, like, the weaker kind of, just, this is going to be a quick combat. It takes more time to set it up than it would be to just run through it. But anything that's like a bigger battle and tactics could really be an aspect of the game, then we're like, okay, let's pull stuff out. But for me, that's a bit of a challenge, because since Dave and I flip-flopped, I run the game that's now in Philly. So anything that I want to have, I have to make sure is, packed up and can safely travel, and then have to be carried, up 4 flights of stairs and sometimes across several city blocks. So
Yeah.
tend to not go too crazy with things, though. I do have a session planned where I've got a whole bunch of, things that I plan on using. So I was like, all right, well, it's going to be a bit wonky.
Well, you know it too. We had something happen on our table that hasn't happened, I don't know, ever. I feel like so we've our gaming table has always had a grid laid out, clear grid that we would use. And we were playing Shadow of the Demon Lord. Vegas is like starts pulling out markers and drawing on the table. We're like, what? Who does that? And so there's also that aspect, and I know plenty of people do that. They'll either, like, they like to use the what is the grid paper, and just draw right on that, use it, throw it away, or dry erase. You'll do that. Maybe with some. Maybe they'll do that along with maybe some scatter, but for the most part, that's definitely a way to do it as well. I found, like, during the pandemic, one of the fun things to do was to throw up a map I would find online, and then Zoom would allow you to draw over top of it. Although if you move the map, the things you draw will stay where they are. But but it was very similar to that. So I could just, like, put text for the player characters, and I could put text or symbols for the monsters. And it was super easy. Like, I know definitely for one of the games I was running for the I guess I call it the family game or kids game or whatever. It's like, oh, we're gonna do a thing in this ice cave, and it's like, Google search D&D map ice cave, boom. Which one do I think my ice cave looks like? So it was super easy.
Indeed. I've never done the the digital map on a Zoom and draw on it and what have, but having some things at the ready and the go is never a bad thing.
Well, it is kind of easy too, because if you also start putting together resources, where, like, and if you're organized, I've heard some people do this thing. Um, you could have like, oh, these are my ice cave maps. These are my dungeons. These are my crypts, right? And you just sort them. You could probably grab maps on the fly pretty quick and do that if you're playing, playing online. I know that there's definitely a lot of people that use VTTs that do that kind of stuff. And then I'm like the VTTs themselves might actually have, once you've uploaded that stuff, they might have a searchability function, so that you could be like just kind of talking and searching at the same time.
If you're good at multitasking, not everyone's gonna be able to be like, yes, let me talk and continue narrating the game and whatever have you. Meanwhile, I'm frantically searching here on my computer.
Yeah, well, I feel like I have a very low ability at doing those things, and I still manage to do it somewhat. So I feel like to a certain degree, anybody can. It just depends on like how precise you're trying to be.
Oh, there are times that I definitely manage to multitask well, and other times where I'm like, all right, I need to stop. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna find my next piece here because
yeah. And then also I've seen people that are like inhuman, right? Like Will from Encounter Roleplay. When I had him on the chat, he was having a conversation with me and talking directly to me while chatting a separate conversation with the live chat, and I'm like, this is witchcraft or sorcery, or you're definitely some kind of robot or something.
some people's brains just manage to function, in that kind of capacity. And I don't think I do it, but I mean, to those who have that ability, awesome. Kudos to you.
So we talked about kind of like the aspect of maps, using them as, kind of like play aids, I guess, right? But what about maps in the games? I feel like in a lot of my earlier games, maps came up a lot more often, in the sense that like, here's a treasure map. Here's, I remember like a big event in my, one of my first D&D games, serious D&D games, was the special item quest, where the DM had crafted an item for each of us, and we were going to seek it. I don't remember what exactly the premise was. That part might have been a little bit hand wavy, but we got a map to go to that location, and it took us, it was quite a few adventures to get there. I almost got murdered by evil squirrels, just not giant squirrels or fiendish squirrels, just regular evil squirrels, flying squirrels. I believe they were from the Monster Manual 2, and they were no joke.
I'm gonna have to go find that old Monster Manual 2 and find out what evil squirrels existed in there, because that sounds hilarious.
Well, the GM was like, it was cold, like it was like more of a winter, and we're going through the forest, so it's like, yeah, you can have your, I don't even know if we're allowed to wear, if we had our armor or not. I was a druid, so I didn't have great armor anyway. And like, we went to like great detail to describe the clothing we would have had to wear and how bulky it was. So it's like, once the squirrel got on you, like, I just remember my go-to move was to roll, stop, drop, and roll into the fire to try and burn these little figures off.
Wow, that's hilarious. I don't know. I think evil squirrels might be yet again in your future, Dave.
Yeah. Doug says, pretty sure there's at least two. There are two magical maps, because I just seen both of them recently. At least two. And actually, I was just searching D&D Beyond. There's only one map I found, and it is from Acquisitions Inc. And the way it's written is weird. I'm not super familiar with the Acquisitions Inc. material, because it keeps talking about rank 3. I'm like, right. I don't know what that means.
Now, to me, I think I don't do maps all that often. I think generally because my brain, like, you think treasure map and just think pirates, and I don't want to overdo pirates. I don't know, if that's anything.
Dude, there is a pirate treasure thing. I don't know if it's like a documentary or what on Netflix that just dropped. And I think it's like 8 episodes. So I don't think my family would be too interested, or my wife would be too interested. So they're away. So I'm probably going to watch that.
Okay.
And it talked about, like, I think, like, I was just watching, like, how it'll do the autoplay of like a preview. And it was just talking about how they would use natural terrain to create hazards, and it was like, putting it at the bottom of this, like a bog pit, which would automatically fill with water, so you couldn't get to it if you tried to dig it out or whatever. I don't know how they got to it, but
So to answer Comrade's other question, yes, I'm saying that there are squirrels that aren't evil. I happen to think squirrels are awesome. I keep trying to bring the ones in my neighborhood. It hasn't worked out too well, but trying.
my grandfather had a couple squirrels that he was pretty friendly with. I think it was a couple different ones. He always just called it Harry, no matter which one that showed up, but they would come and take food from him.
That's awesome.
So
Squirrels, I mean, are intelligent like any other rodents. So like it is possible for them to kind of learn, and the craziness of what squirrels can do, I think is out there. But we're here to talk about
they
maps.
can burn down your house.
As they did try for you, right?
No, that was you. No, I did have one squirrel incident in my house because one of them got into the walls. They had babies, and I managed to get them out of my house. And then one of the babies came back and like died on my doorstep.
Oh, damn.
So I was like, that was pretty metal. So,
it's like I will.
I think I think that's the curse of their people. I've been squirrel cursed.
That sucks. So, as far as, other things with maps, I mean, I kind of joked about it, a couple weeks ago, but I totally did give you guys a map, but it was more like you guys wished for a magical map in the We Live on a Boat game.
Yes, we did.
And I am going to torture you guys with that for some time. And your wife has even delayed it at doing the voice for it. So
yeah, she's decided to role play. Pratima came up with the kind of the idea for a magic map. I threw in some suggestions of like how we can make that useful for us as adventurers and on the run.
But
it was a team effort. And Volcanic Knight was the one that actually had to fulfill the wish.
He was the one that blew the conch shell.
He did.
And he rubbed it. I think that was all part and parcel of the.
In order to have the wish granted, you had to put the conch shell in your mouth and rub it, I believe. So, and he did that wholeheartedly. But he's a frog person. He doesn't even have lips, so I'm not even sure how he blew the conch shell. So that is always one of the dragonborn, turtles, lizard folk, any of the frogs. Frogs kind of have lips a little bit more than most reptiles, but even still.
And as Volcanic Knight says, the map is named Pam. So
yeah. Because we did the Court of Worms where like everything was reptile. So what I did in that setting is no one played woodwind instruments.
Sure.
Right, and woodwind,
like strings and drums.
Everything's percussion and strings. Yeah, as it should be.
It's 8:29. We usually do the admin stuff at 8:30. So we happen to be at a nice stopping point. So it is the first Monday of the month. That means two things. It means we're going to do our typical giveaway as well as the monthly fan game announcement. The fan game this time is going to be with Nerdarchy Doug. That game is going to be on Sunday, July 31st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And the following people have been selected. So Doug, if he's not already sent the email, he probably will be soon. But be on the lookout from that email. We've got Angie Cox, Charlie Thacker, Ed Voldash, Jason Percival, Stephen Kunst, Lorna Dickin, Lance Ziefman, Orson Davis, and Stefan Immel. So be on the lookout for that. We usually say the first 5 people to respond get in on that game, and Doug will gladly fill you in on what the cool details of that is going to be. As always, these things are not streamed games. It's just a chance to, have all of you awesome people, be able to have a chance of gaming with us. The monthly giveaway winner is John Payne. Have not sent out the email yet, but I will. And what he has won is we've got Idols of the Realms, Monster Pack 1 and 2. These are the 2D acrylic minis. Between the two sets, that's 34 2D standy plastic minis by our friends over at WizKids. Dave has thrown in there Monsters of the Wilderness, Oswald's Curse. This is from Kwood Publishing. Andrew sent us a couple of copies. I still have a couple things from my trip over to PAX Unplugged. So we've got Seeds of Decay from Hit Point Press and the first issue of Crucible Mag. And then we still have a copy of Call of the Netherdeep. So I'm going to get a hold of John, get an address, and get these all sent your way.
Oh, that's a nice haul.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed. Like Ted handles all the giveaway stuff for the most part, so I'm always amazed of all the stuff we give away.
I mean, it's 2 books and some accessories, if you will.
Yeah. We're gonna have to get rid of hurry up and get rid of the rest of if we have any of the PAX Unplugged stuff still left, because like it's gonna be here again before we know it.
So I have 2 more issues of the Crucible left to give away.
Yeah.
After this stack. So if it comes out and for some reason we still didn't give them away because I goof or what have you, I am certain that we will find ways, because there's some good stuff in those things. So
there is definitely some good stuff in those things.
So all right, that is the admin stuff. I took care of that kind of quickly. We have got things progressing with MageForge. Lately we're going through doing our revising, making sure the items that we've crafted and cultivated are as top notch as possible. Really looking forward to diving in and honing them up. We've got a couple things progressing for some more new projects beyond MageForge, because we're always working at the Nerd Forge here at Nerdarchy. So definitely got some fun things to kind of share and show and what have you in the future.
Yeah, we definitely have some projects we're working on. Obviously, the most visible ones are MageForge, which we're doing our final pass through before it gets laid out. And then once that happens, all the orders over on the MageForge will be locked, which means I guess I think it begins charging shipping, but also you can't really change your orders anymore. But also, like anyone that got virtual products, digital products, you'll be able to then download them as well. So, and we'll get them out to people before we send stuff off to the printer. And they assure me they're right on schedule and they're not being affected by anything. But I also believe those people generally lie. So, fingers crossed.
It's not malicious. It's them trying to be hopeful. That's the way I look at
it. Yeah. But that being said, we're ahead of schedule. We're doing well time wise, so we'll have that stuff out with the quickness.
As soon as we are able, we want to get that awesome product into your hands so that you can begin having your table graced with the awesome magic items from the MageForge.
Yeah. Also, too, like speaking of maps, like if I should have put this in the store, but we do have the out of the box encounters map packs, and they're generally just like single scenes, single rooms, that you could use with out of the box encounters. Highly recommend it. But if not, you would also be able to just be like, oh, I need a map. Well, here's a pack of 55 maps that we have, that you could purchase and use in your game. And we have them on the website, and I won't quote the price because I don't want to be wrong, but I'm looking it up now. It's fairly inexpensive for 55 digital maps, so you can use them, print them out, or use them in your VTTs. $1.99. So you too can have all the maps, and of course they're obviously in the book as well. I will drop those I'm going to drop them into our chat, and I'll drop it into the in case people are interested, and I'll also drop it into the description so that people can check that out if they want to. And I've definitely strung several of the out of the box encounters together to create a little adventure, and the map's already there. So
Indeed, and there's a lot of fun things that kind of tie in with the adventures that we have over on the website, as well as within out of the box, and we are looking to integrate more for the future things that we work on, so that there is even more of that connectivity, so that you can do exactly those kinds of things.
yeah, for sure. We're slowly but surely building out the Nerdarchy verse, as Doug likes to call it. And
And
because I know like he likes to think about like how these things are connected, even though we have because we have a bunch of different stuff that spans all over the place.
and the great part is, like, through the design of it, and I'm not trying to make this just be one big commercial. All the stuff that we put out, we like to have as drop in content, because we know, like, we love homebrew stuff, so, like, that is the kind of stuff that we want in our games. And, like, so the most useful things are things you can kind of drop anywhere. So whether you want to drop a villain like Jarice, the Lord of Dead Dreams, right into your Feywild, boom, you've got this thing. Now all the stuff that's connected to him could be attached to this, and you can play with it. Oh, well, now since you're already in the Feywild, well, what if you step over here and take this thing and take this piece? Oh, you don't want to do it with the Feywild? Boom. All right, let's shove that aside and pull out something else that you can add.
Well, yeah, and even like non Nerdarchy stuff, Nerdarchy stuff aside, like you know, that's why searching the internet just for maps is so cool, because sometimes you might just find stuff that you hadn't been planning to use, and you're like, oh, I'll save this map because this inspired me to do something in the game. I want to, this old house is really creepy looking, or this windmill, or this lighthouse, or whatever, and you just might want to be like, I want to use this in my game. And like, because we kind of do a lot of stuff on the fly, and we don't do tend to do tons of prep in our own games. Like, these are the things that we think are really useful for GMs to use their time for, right? Like, having just like a generic tavern or house, or crypt, that you have a map that's lying around. So if your players do something that you weren't expecting, you can be like, oh, you know what, I've got just the thing for that. And you just pull out this random crypt map, and boom, the mausoleum they've decided to raid, uh, that you were completely not expecting, you've got something to use.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, having that bag of tricks, having things at the ready just in case, is definitely a good thing. And that's where drop in content, whether it's the stuff we make, other people make, or random things you find on the net, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and I guess one of the things that we did in the Court of Worms games is like I said, we would project things from the computer to another screen, which was something that I really enjoyed doing. And way back when too, when Scott would run games for us, he would do that as well. His tended to be more like visual aids than maps per se, but even
Right.
still, like, it is a great resource if you have access to it, right? And you're playing. And the thing that's great about it, because if you're playing in person, it's a little bit harder to tap into some of those resources. But if you just happen to be using a game table that has a screen built into it, or
Right.
if or at this point, I think a lot of us have TVs that you can just screen share your computer to, so you can kind of access that, so it's like, taking the technology and using it, and then other people are just playing online, which a lot of that stuff is super easy to use.
Yeah, and that's really just whether you're going from the hand drawn maps, or whether you're going to, like, the super high end technical stuff, it's still something that's there. And in case it hasn't been said clearly enough, like, there's no wrong way to do it. I watch more streamed RPGs than Dave. Dave doesn't really get into it. Doug is somewhere in the middle. He watches a little bit of stuff. There's one game that I have enjoyed watching. It's the General Adventuring Company.
Oh, I can speak to this because I actually played in one of their one shots,
Uh-huh.
and the GM Adam brings out a whiteboard and sketches horribly on it of kind of maps and what is going on. These drawings are so bad, they're good.
It's a quick 2-second scribble, and to me, there's no detraction from the game. And then you've got on the flip side, the massively successful Critical Role, where he's pulling out these, hundreds, if not thousands of dollar maps that he lays down on the table of Dwarven Forge and some specially made stuff that, either he or somebody else has made specific for this game, this encounter, using countless hours worth of prep, not only cultivating the things in it, but to craft them themselves. And it's spectacular with the precise lighting to show, or in some cases, the literal light up features of things. So it's crazy, and there's no wrong way to do it. Whether you're doing theater of the mind, whether you're drawing, on a whiteboard, or whether you're sinking, a week's worth of paycheck into just making that shine.
Well, it's kind of funny. There's a guy that I think his name is Shad, but I could be getting it wrong. I even had on the channel to talk to him, but he just does setups on Twitter and maybe on Facebook for his Dwarven Forge. He's just dude that using Dwarven Forge, and it's funny because they brought him out to one of the events, one of the D&D live events with all of his stuff. It was really bizarre to me because I'm like, why didn't they just get Dwarven Forge to do it? But yeah, but there's definitely people that like to do that and like to do these huge setups. I will say one of the things I really enjoyed watching, Matt Mercer do is when he does it on a piece of plywood, which I mean that's anybody could. I feel like pretty much anybody could do that, and then just brings out the encounter piece and drops it on the table.
Right.
I really enjoy those kind of things, and I would prefer to do it that way. And it could be off to the side. It's covered. It's not really I don't think it's going to influence the game. Whereas you show up at someone's table and the whole table is just set up with Dwarven Forge. It's wonder what we're doing tonight. It's you got this huge cavern complex or sewer complex or dungeon complex in front of you. It's well, this is what you're doing. And I mean, it's cool, but also it's well, someone just spent a lot of time setting that up. When I was at D&D in the Castle, I played one of Stefan Pogorni's 1E games where it's this adventure into a castle, and the castle's right there. So for an event, it works out really good because generally they have to be more linear anyway. But if it was someone's and it started in the city in a tavern, right? So, but imagine that a city, a tavern, you're supposed to go to a castle, but it's your home game. It's a campaign. This big castle set up, and the players are I don't know. Giggles the Goblin over there is really fascinating. I want to learn about Goblin culture by doing a cultural exchange program with that Goblin tribe right now. And the GM's look, mother effers. That Goblin tribe now lives in that castle over there. And they're being held prisoner, and if you want to have your cultural exchange with them, you're going to have to go free them.
Well, I mean, we've said it numerous times here on the channel, and I know you brought it up recently in some conversation where I've tried you start here, or you've got all the mundane items you could possibly need for this adventure.
Yeah.
Still want to be nope, I'm in town. Let's go shopping.
I know your pain on that one is delicious. I don't know why. I just amused me to no end. They just spent hours in the town just doing town things.
I
said you got everything you could possibly need. The adventure's over here. Look, there's a glowing light highlighting the adventure area. I'm nah.
No, I'm gonna go this direction instead. It's are you kidding me? Really? Can Can we just play the
Yeah,
regular game?
yeah. I also remember like you did an adventure with it was really cool because like we have these like Arcana mechs that are deactivated in our world, and you use one of those as a as the adventure site.
Hmm.
And I know one of the players had played it, and he was disappointed because they didn't get to do like the town stuff first. And I'm like, no, of course not. That's a terrible idea. That's because you guys will spend 2 hours doing that, and then the actual adventure doesn't get done. you need, you need to corral your players when it's a one shot type scenario. You need a definitive, clear. We're starting right here. Preferably, I like to use magic or something to give them no choice but to go in this one direction, and do the adventure. And that's that, because open-ended sandboxy adventures do not work for one shots. They're
Well,
great for campaigns, but when you got a
yeah,
block
for
of time.
heck, even for anything where you are talking about an event like that, is this things that need to be more controlled. Whether you're like, oh, I'm running a series of a game online, or you're like, for D&D in a castle, like you only have so many hours. You got essentially 24 hours of gameplay max, unless like you really push boundaries. Be like, all right, can we extend this a little bit? Players want to get through what's there, and if you got a story to tell, like if somebody decides they're gonna spend 2 hours with Giggles the Goblin's Try, well, that's 2 hours worth of main plot that is just gonna have to be dropped off and ignored.
Yeah, so I mean, implementing like time constraints or something that is going to motivate them to do the adventure and make it a priority is like an absolute must. And sometimes that something is like putting them on the map someplace and be like, oh, now you got to find your way out.
And that's what you got to do. And sometimes you need to, you know, heighten things up. It's like, oh well, you think you're going here, but realistically, something waylays you. Put in a fight, change the dynamic. And well, if they're playing in town, well, why not have a town map to pull out and be able to say
Yeah.
ambush?
Well, I mean, you have a great adventure like that, and it also kind of dovetails into the maps.
Mm-hmm.
And you took the Betrayer game, and you made that you've turned that into your like a haunted house adventure where you use the tiles. And the thing about that game in and of itself is the idea once you go in and things start happening, you can't actually leave. You have to solve the mystery first.
Yes, and that's actually an idea that I'm expanding upon for my D&D in a castle game. I'm still formulating all of the particular layers for it, but if I'm going to talk about it, let's sell the sizzle. I'm taking my Betrayal of the House on the Hill game, expanding that out from a one shot to a six session story arc, and then I'm taking some heavy inspiration from some of the items we have in the Mage Forge and Lock and Key, the Netflix series, and I'm tying a big ribbon around it and smushing to see how condensed I can get it. And I'm really eager to kind of get out to the castle and see how this goes, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it still has enough freedom of the betrayal theme
Hmm.
that, depending upon what kind of characters I have and what kind of things they're looking to do, I can still kind of like twist and shake up what the house is to still fit some ideas and ideals that they're looking to play with.
Super sweet. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do with that, because I know the haunted the betrayer concept is a lot of fun. Are you going to use the tiles?
That's actually what I'm doing with the dungeon alchemy. Is I'm making the rooms that I want to have for that. So I'm actually, like, it's not going to be lay out the whole thing, but I'll lay out the rooms that combat could possibly happen in.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That'll be a lot of fun.
Like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. So we're getting down to our final 10 minutes. So if you got any map related or non-map related questions, if you're not too busy celebrating the fourth and getting ready to watch things explode, go ahead and throw up those questions and whatnot, and we'll get to them as best as possible.
Yeah, and also, if you thought you were to come here and have us give you advice on mapping, sorry, we're not very artistically inclined. But the great thing about the game and playing is that you don't have to be, between all the tools that are out there, between all the map resources that are out there, and also I feel like there are so many really good map Patreon that you could support, and part of that is they just give you maps to use.
Mhm.
Is like there's like an endless supply.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of great contenders out there, and stick to the people who excel at that. So if you want something artfully crafted kind of deal, like you could go in that direction. But if you're looking for just something easy peasy, as Dave says, you can check out the map pack we have, or go check out any of those random map design programs. You just click 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 until you get the thing you're looking
Yeah, in the last game that I ran for you guys and Under the Dome, one of the things you guys had to do was find a map to a location because you wanted to figure out how to infiltrate it, right? So you guys wanted to do a prison break, and you're like, well, if you if you you know if we want to break into this place, we need to find some maps, some specs, and figure out like how feasible this is and how we're going to plan it. So like that became part of the adventure, was finding if you could find that, and you found a cartographer or at least a warforged that like collected maps and was all about cartography, and also done a little bit in some black market stuff.
for. Right. And oh boy, did that not go the direction you thought it was going to go.
Yeah, that is true.
You shared this information, and as you're getting deeper and deeper into your description, I think half the party was like, I don't think this is possible. I think this is where Dave is trying to like, you need to come up with a different plan. You could see when Dave's talking, it's like, nah, you guys got this. I don't really feel reassured.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like I don't write solutions to the problems for the most part, right? Like,
Oh, I'm well aware.
and I just present like, oh, you guys want to do this? Well, here's what you're looking at, and let me hit me with your best shot. What do you guys got? And this has happened to be one of those, and like this has happened to be one of those cases because like the morning before, I didn't draw out a map, but I just kind of wrote out like oh, how would this prison be set up? And I'm like, okay, well, it's attached to one of the noble barons, the houses, the grind barons. So they don't want people to break out and be able to go directly into their house. So it's kind of it's separated from that. It's a prison, so I feel like a good prison doesn't have a lot of ways to get in and out of it. So I did that, and also then I took in like the peculiar architecture of the city, and then like built that into it as well. And I actually for like a magical fantasy kind of game, but I really didn't do much in the way of magical defenses. It's just like it's kind of a hard to reach spot. There's four gargoyles that protect the outside of it because it's up high, and like, well, flying could be an issue. And then one way in, one way out. The controls to getting out, in and out, weren't actually in the prison itself, but just outside of it. And it was just a spire that went down. And it was just like, one level is the command center, and then 9 levels of prison cells, with guards stationed, at each level. And also, like, to me, I was just going to use like the crappy guards out of the
Right.
player's handbook. I mean, not the monster manual, the NPCs.
But like fighting through that many layers of stuff, like it's like I don't really know if this is going to be possible, even though we were what, fifth level.
Yeah, you guys are fifth.
That's still asking an awful lot of of the players, like of the player characters, like how long can you wind your way through that amount of stuff versus, if an alarm is set off, like it's just like this could literally be, the end of the campaign or end of most of the players, unless like somebody's got some serious tricks up their sleeves. So like we just are, thinking like, is there another way? And eventually we come up with, well, what if we don't worry about the map at all? And I don't know if it was multiple people's plans, but like some stuff came together and like, yeah, we don't even need to go up there. We're gonna let the homunculus solve all the problems for us. So the artificer literally flew up, dropped off some potions, and voila, they got out of Dodge. And like it was like, holy crap, that went drastically different than I thought it was going to be.
Well,
All, like the 600 gold that we spent on a potion of gaseous form.
well, it was kind of funny because you guys have spent like so one of the players put together a whole doc to like how are we going to do this, here's the plan for people to jump in on and plan the prison break, and then coming up with it, and then you guys got to the session and you're like, well, now it's how are we going to implement this, and I was just like, hey, you guys said something about wanting to find like some blueprints or a map, and they're like, yeah, we want to do that. I was like, okay, cool, let's do that then. And then you guys got that and you're like, oh, wait a minute. So
Yeah.
make sure you use your maps to end the adventure.
So, I mean, maps can do exactly that. Maps can give a clue as to whether or not something is feasible or not, even if you're undecided if it is not, if it is or it isn't. But you can describe things, and I've definitely tried to become a little bit more observant as a player at the table and try to understand when the GM is narrating and describing things as to, are they trying to foretell like, hey, this is beyond you, or this is, really complicated, you might not want to deal with it. Now mind you, this game that Dave is talking about, 4 out of the 5 player characters, not the players, the characters are straight up idiots. We've got a genius at the table with an 18, and then everybody else has either got an 8 or a 10. So this is not Smarty McSmarty Pants, kind of characters. We got 3 barbarians and I'm a pretty sorcerer. So it was like, well, yeah. So making a dumb mistake, that's gonna go easy. That's the easy button for us.
Yeah. Also, the ones with a 10 intelligence probably have an 8 wisdom.
Yes.
there is that. But you know what? It kind of led to it led to a lot of other stuff happening during the session. So you guys got a mental picture of the blueprints and map for the prison, and then from there, it really made you guys think of other ways that you might get into the prison. Like, because at that point, I feel like 5 or 6 ideas were kind of pitched,
right,
before you guys finally settled on what you were going to do and how you were going to do it.
But all in all, it turned out great in the end. And we had a lot of fun, despite the challenge. I look back and I just hope that Dave wasn't too upset with us for not really sticking to the plan that we came up with.
It's fine. I did build out an encounter in D&D Beyond called prison guard patrols, but it's fine.
So we are getting down to the last minute. So big brain time is a questionable thing, from Comrade 2261.
Well, on the plus side, they don't spend a lot of time thinking about things. They just do stuff. It's good.
Well, that's a great thing for parties. So just like, you got an action party. Action parties are great.
It is funny though, because the smart character also is being role played in a way that gives off big Elvis Presley impersonator vibes.
Yes, very much so. This is the voice that the artificer has chosen to do.
Yeah. So there is that as well. But all in all, there are plenty of ways to use maps in your game. As far as whether you're looking to use them as play aids or whether you're actually using them as story elements, treasure hunting, all of that stuff, is a lot of fun. And over the years, they've definitely come up in different ways. And we mentioned the Mage Forge has a couple of magical maps in it. At least there's some resources down in the description for links, so you can check those out. Everyone here in the States, I hope you had a great 4th of July celebration and stayed safe. But until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.